Hello there, very good evening to you and welcome to Primetime News. We are coming to you live from the Newsfirst studio here in Colombo. I'm Stephanie Lazarus. Before we head into the stories in detail, here's a look at the headlines.
Army commander says outsiders behind the violence in Kandy. Terrorist Investigation Division arrests 10 suspects for instigating violence. 71 others arrested for breaking the law. 12-hour curfew reimposed in Kandy Administrative District till 6 AM tomorrow. Ranjit Madhuma Bandara sworn in as new Minister of Law and Order. Time up at midnight for former Central Bank Governor Arjuna Mahendran to appear before CID. A very good evening to our viewers. We are going to take a look at our developing story for the day. Now, as a balanced media institution, we have been responsible and civic-minded in our reporting of the incidents that took place in Kandy in the recent days. I have here with me Shane Silva. Thank you for joining me in the studio, Shane, this evening.
Thank you, Chaturanga. And I must add to that media institutions as a whole have been, that is including both print and electronic media, have been very responsible in their coverage of the state of affairs that unfolded over the past few days.
Definitely, Shane. But on the flip side of things, social media and people, certain individuals who are thriving on platforms of this nature have used these platforms to be very irresponsible and, if I may call it, rash in sharing their opinions and their views. Now, to this end, it must be both noted and emphasized that the reins of social media and the direction in which things operate on social media, the views that are expressed, the shares that are made, are solely the responsibility of the general public of this country.
Yeah, that's right, Chaturanga, because as you know, it is up to each and every member of society to ensure that what information and what information that is made available to them is shared or is digested in a responsible manner. And to this end, they must ensure that none of this information is manipulated or used to further any political or selfish gains. Now, to this extent, it must be deduced that those elements who actually thrive in manipulating or, misusing information of this nature actually have no idea or no intention of seeing the country prosper or move forward as a unified nation. Now, in that backdrop, let's take a look at what the Army Commander had to say today.
Army Commander Lieutenant General Mahesh Senanayake met with the Chief Prelate of the Malwatu chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Tibbatuabe Sumanglathero. The situation has been brought under control. There are small incidents at places, but they can be prevented. A group that arrived from outside is roaming around this area. This is not a good situation. We will strictly enforce the law. This is an unjustifiable fight. There isn't a group calling for peace of our country. Unfortunately, there are some terrorists who are. The President instructed the Navy Commander, Air Force Commander and myself to fix the property that was destroyed and that financial allocations will be made by the Presidential Secretariat. Following his meeting with the Mahanayaka Thero, the Army Commander also spoke to a Thero of the Malwatu Mahaviharaya. I have stationed close to a brigade. We have these officers standing by because we need to provide a reassurance to the people who are scared. As the army commander, I can say that the people of the Central Hills are innocent and respectable people. There are groups that have come here from outside to instigate these incidents. We are in an active operation, and the army and all other armed forces will do everything we can within the confines of the law. We will take action against these instigators to ensure that such actions do not occur once again. I believe they will learn a good lesson this time around.
That was the army commander speaking, and in his statement he said that the operation to consolidate law and order is an active operation and that is ongoing. And he also mentioned a very important point, Shane, that the people living in Kandy are people who are innocent, and there are people who have come from outside into Kandy and are instigating issues of this nature.
Chaturanga, I'm going to take you back to 1983 when a black mark in the history of this nation, namely the Black July riots of 1983, flared up in similar circumstances. And what you see behind me is actually one snapshot of the immense carnage and destruction that took place. The picture you see behind me is that of Malwata Road opposite the Fort Railway Station, and there were similar incidents like this, or similar situations like this right throughout the country in various forms. Actually, it must be also noted that the selfish hunger and greed for power sowed the seeds for this incident, which resulted in the mindless battering of innocent people. Now, while the top brass of the police were on leave for 48 hours, when the incident first flared up, several key ministers in the then government were behind this. Chief among these ministers are Cyril Matthew and Lalit Atulat Mudali.
Yes, Shane. Now, we must reiterate that the politicians should limit themselves to engage in politics, and they should also respect the people of this country, and the people should be left alone. It is common understanding, it is understood by everyone that there is no good that will come to a country through racism or any situations of this nature. Now, keeping all of that in mind, Shane, do you know that there have been 3 law and order ministers in the recent past in our country? A new law and order minister was sworn in today, Ranjit Madhuma Bandara. Let's have a listen and have a look at what happened.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and Secretary to the President Austin Fernando were present at this occasion. In addition to his new appointment, Ranjit Madhuma Bandara will continue to serve as the Minister of Public Administration and Management. After being sworn in, Minister Madhuma Bandara took part in religious observances at the Hunupitiya Ganga Rama Viharaya. Thereafter, the minister called on the chief incumbent of the Ganga Rama Viharaya, Venerable Galabuna Gnanasara Thera. This is a minor issue. I would like to thank all media stations. Among that, I would like to especially thank Sirasa's Gammadda program. You could resolve this minor issue by tomorrow through a program like Gammadda. Sirasa has come up with a method to resolve issues in far-out villages in just one day, together with all police officers and religious heads in those areas. I suggest that other media stations do the same as well. If you follow this method, then I suppose you can revive this country in a week. The Ministry of Law and Order has a huge responsibility in establishing democracy, independence, law and order in this country. We also hold the responsibility of strengthening and ensuring this country is a haven for all communities, including Sinhala, Muslims and Tamils. This was a minor issue which spiraled out of control. It is our government's responsibility that justice is meted out to all communities. I will fulfill my duties from the bottom of my heart.
While a new Minister of Law and Order was sworn in today, 71 suspects have been arrested by police over incidents that took place within the Kandy Administrative District. The police media spokesperson added that 10 others were arrested by the Terrorist Investigation Division for instigating these incidents.
මේ ත්‍රස්තවාදී විමර්ශන දිසාවේ නිලධාරීන් සිදු කරන ලද විමර්ශනවලදී
Following the investigation carried out by the Terrorist Investigation Division, a special arrest operation took place early this morning in Digana and Pujapitiya. 10 suspects were arrested for instigating disharmony and spreading false information via social media, which mounted to criminal offences. They had done so since the 4th of March. The chief suspect is named Vidarana Patiranage Amit Jeevan. His associate Sureda Suravira is among the arrested. Action will be taken against these 10 suspects as per the miscellaneous provisions and powers in the Emergency Regulations No. 1 of 2018.
විවිධ විධිවිධාන හා බලතල නියෝග ප්‍රකාරව ඉදිරියට කටයුතු මේ වෙද්දිත් සිදු කරමින් පවතින.
Police stations have also made arrests following incidents reported in Kandy.
මේ මාර්තු 4 ඉඳලා අද
The Kandy police made 8 arrests. Theldenia police made 30 arrests. Manikina police made 7 arrests. Katugastota police made 6 arrests. Wattegama police made 6 arrests. 13 arrests in the Talatua area and 1 arrest in Pallakele. A total of 71 suspects were arrested over the incidents which were reported. 3,000 police officers have been deployed for security, while 750 personnel from the Police Special Task Force have also been deployed. Thanks to the coordinated efforts, there were no major incidents reported today. We request the public, do not be deceived by false reports.
තොරතුරු වලට අසත්‍ය ප්‍රචාර වලට රැවටෙන්න එපා කියලා.
අපි මේ ප්‍රදේශයේ අනදීම සඳහා යුද හමුදාපතිතුමා විසින් මේජර් ජෙනරල් රුක්මල් ඩයස්
The Army Commander appointed Major General Rumal Jayatissa and Nishanta Ranavana for his support. The situation is normal. 2,500 Army personnel, 600 sailors and 30 airmen have been deployed.
Shane, it must also be noted that the law enforcement agencies in our country acted very fast and imposed a police curfew initially in the Kandy administrative district. From time to time that curfew was taken off and then it moved into a curfew. And we have news today that a 12-hour curfew is once again imposed in the Kandy administrative district from 6 p.m. this evening.
The curfew, which was imposed last evening, was lifted at 10 this morning following instructions by the President. The Department of Government Information said the President made the decision to allow the people to obtain essentials such as food and water. The curfew, which was imposed this evening for the Kandy administrative district, will be in effect until 6 a.m. tomorrow. Representatives from the Muslim community called on President Maithripala Sirisena last night to discuss the prevailing situation in the country.
The heads of the All Ceylon Jamiatul Ulama and Muslim civil organizations called on the President yesterday. The leaders of Muslim organizations extended fullest support to President Maithripala Sirisena to establish an atmosphere conducive for all the Sri Lankans to live in peace and harmony. The President, while pointing out that only a small group of extremist elements were responsible for these acts of violence, stated that steps are being taken to arrest them and bring them before the law. President Sirisena mentioned that the government has already taken every required actions to build a peaceful country for all the people to live in peace and harmony.
Now, as mentioned earlier on, the general public has the control over the social media, and it must be acknowledged that during this situation, the general public at large acted in a very responsible and a very prudent manner.
We must also at this point, Chaturanga, salute the President, the armed forces, the law enforcement agencies of this country for acting in a swift manner and also for bringing and establishing law and order in the Kandy administrative district.
Now, Shane, views were expressed in Parliament today regarding the incidents that transpired in Kandy. Let's have a look.
I'm not going to point my finger at anyone here for the incidents that transpired. However, if there is anyone who tried to spin this in a political way, then whoever does it, it is wrong. We bring our hands together and bow our heads to all intelligent Sinhala citizens and ask you to never act out against your Muslim brothers. We ask the same from the Muslim population. We cannot move ahead with a country that can be riled up with just a small incident. As a country, we should be ashamed if a ball of flour in a kottu can lead to such destruction, if a motor accident can lead to such destruction. What kind of country have we created? The police is there to act, to implement the law against persons with no regard for their race or religion. Now the job of the opposition is to stir up racism. They want to do the same here as well. One group goes outside to spread their hate, while the other group sheds crocodile tears. We are receiving information that they are inciting racism targeting the 2020 presidential election. To the people of this country, do not be fooled. I turn your attention to the Dinamina newspaper. The headline reads, "The hidden foe behind the incidents in Kandy revealed. 2 MPs, 2 local government representatives of a new political party, a secretary to an MP, a party organizer have been brought into the area. By doing such things, are we the ones who are inciting racism?" It is very clear who these people are. Don't beat around the bush. The cabinet spokesperson made certain revelations. So today we, Parliament, needs to know who these people are. When Black July took place in 1983, I was in Parliament. What did the UNP say back then? They said that there is a political force behind it and that they will be banning the JVP with immediate effect. MPs are public representatives. Public representatives have a right to go to places where there are issues. We need to state with responsibility that these are false charges.
පරීක්ෂණයක් කරනවා රාජ පොලිසිය මගින් ඒ පූර්ණ පොලිසිය රාජ පොලිසිය වාර්තාව රජයට ඉදිරිපත් කළාට පස්සේ අපිට කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් එහෙමයි.
Shane, speaking in Parliament, parliamentarian Ajit Manampirma said to the people of this country, do not be fooled. Key takeaway from all of that is that the politicians of this country are trying to use the public as political tools to gain political mileage for petty reasons.
As political pawns.
As political pawns. So keeping all of this in mind, thank you, Shane, for joining. There's more news on the other side. Stephanie is joining us from the main news studio.
Well, thank you, Chaturanga Hapuachi and Shane Silva. We are moving on to more local news here on Primetime News. The Catholic Bishops' Conference in Sri Lanka calls on all Sri Lankans to look at the prevailing situation in the country and its consequences wisely and with foresight.
A statement from the Catholic Bishops' Conference in Sri Lanka reads, having learned from our past experiences, we should look at all incidents as having potential to unleash violence. Therefore, let us be realistic, humane and compassionate in dealing with events of this nature. It is destructive to give a religious twist to isolated incidents, leaving room to extremists to create a conflagration. Let no one add fuel to the fire. The Catholic Bishops' Conference in Sri Lanka requests all religious and political leaders and other organizations to cooperate in a spirit of dialogue and understanding to prevent a disastrous conflict.
Delivering his annual report to the UNHRC regular session in Geneva, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Prince Zeid Ra'ad Al Hussein spoke of the recent unrest in Sri Lanka.
In Sri Lanka, I am very alarmed by recurring and continuing episodes of mob violence targeting ethnic and religious minorities, particularly Muslims, including most recently in Ampara and in several locations in the Kandy district, leading to the declaration of a nationwide state of emergency for 10 days. There should be no impunity either for the incitement that led to the attacks or the attacks themselves. I have repeatedly urged the government to advance its implementation of the transitional justice agenda. I regret the absence of meaningful progress. It is urgent, for the sake of the victims, that progress be made on accountability and transitional justice. In the absence of such progress, I would encourage member states to explore the use of universal jurisdiction.
Universal jurisdiction is the ability of the domestic judicial systems of a state to investigate and prosecute certain crimes, even if they were not committed on its territory by one of its nationals or against one of its nationals. According to the Human Rights Watch, universal jurisdiction can be asserted in relation to a limited number of international crimes, including war crimes, torture, crimes against humanity, genocide, piracy, hijacking, acts of terrorism and attacks on UN personnel.
Meanwhile, the UN Under-Secretary General for Political Affairs Jeffrey Feltman arrived in the country today for a pre-planned three-day visit. Feltman is expected to meet with a wide range of leaders, including the President, the Prime Minister, as well as officials of political parties and civil society groups. Still in local news, the international community have expressed concerns on the current situation in Sri Lanka.
Issuing a statement, the EU ambassadors in Sri Lanka have stated that the recent attacks on communities are very worrying and urge the government and the security forces to take urgent action against hate crimes and ensure that the perpetrators of such actions are swiftly brought to justice. The statement also notes that the EU trusts that any action taken under the state of emergency will be proportionate and respect constitutional rights and freedoms. Issuing a statement, Canadian Minister of Foreign Affairs Chrystia Freeland stated that Canada is deeply concerned by recent intercommunal violence in Sri Lanka and urged all sides to engage in inclusive dialogue and exercise restraint to ensure peace and stability. Canada also welcomed the government's condemnation of the violent acts and called on the government to ensure the safety and security of all minorities, protect human rights and fundamental freedoms for all, and hold those responsible for the violence accountable. Responding to a question raised during a press briefing at the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Geng Shuang noted that China believes that the Sri Lankan government and its people are capable of handling the current situation and upholding Sri Lanka's social stability and ethnic solidarity.
The Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority released a statement today stating that in light of events which have transpired in the hill capital of Sri Lanka, Kandy, the authority continues to work with all industry stakeholders to ensure tourists and travellers are safe and secure as they travel throughout the country. The letter issued by the chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority says the situation in Kandy is improving and is fast returning to normalcy. On to one of our headline-making stories now. The time period for former Central Bank Governor Arjuna Mahendran to appear before the Director of the Criminal Investigations Department and provide a statement ends at midnight today.
On the 2nd of March, the Attorney General's Department informed court the first suspect in the case, Lakshman Arjuna Mahendran, the former Central Bank Governor, is not at the address listed in Singapore. The AG's department noted, though notice was sent to the address via a courier service. The courier service had reported back Mahendran is not at the address given. Lakshman Arjuna Mahendran's mobile number had been given to the Singapore representatives of the courier service tasked with handing over the court notice. When they had contacted the number, an individual by the name of Lakshman had answered the call and said he will be returning to Singapore on the 30th. As Lakshman Arjuna Mahendran was given time until today to appear before the CID, and if he fails to appear, court will decide on what measures need to be taken.
Minister Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca responded to questions posed by reporters during a public meeting in Enderamulla, Vattala.
ඇමතුමාට නීතිය හා සාමයේ අමාත්‍ය ධූරය පිරිනමන්න සූදානම් වී තිබියදී ඔබතුමා විශාල පිරිසක් විරුද්ධ වුණායි ඇයි?
විශාල පිරිසක් නෙමෙයි ඔබතුමා.
Not many, but they might have included those in channels like yours. It was not a major group. The Rajapaksas opposed it. They have come to realize if I am given such a position, I will perform my duties to the letter and enforce the law. That will pose a challenge to the Rajapaksa gang filled with corrupt individuals. There were some media and some monks who were with them. They had their people in the police as well. You would have seen via social media what was the need of the country. The United National Party did not oppose this. The General Secretary of the SLFP in fact congratulated me. He had spoke with the President on this matter. The General Secretary of the Alliance congratulated me as well. They insisted the President to hand it over to me. Those who are with the flower bud are the ones who are trembling in fear. Everyone who wants peace and security in the country gave their blessings to me. Now that position has been given to someone else. He wasn't aware. He was suddenly called to the President's office and given the position. Those are not decisions taken with the country at the back of your mind. We express our dissatisfaction about the decision. We will think about the country and take the necessary decisions in the future. Knowing something has been viewed as a disqualification. Those responsible wanted someone who cannot perform those duties properly. Ranjit Madhava Bandara is a good friend of mine. He is a good minister and did not expect this. The country, however, will not accept the decision taken by those accountable as a correct one. I do not accept it as well. According to Article 43(2) of the Constitution, the President shall, on the advice of the Prime Minister, appoint from among members of Parliament, ministers to be in charge of the ministries so determined.
Final rites of Chief Incumbent of the Sri Sambodhi Vihara in Colombo, Venerable Dharanagama Kusaladhamma Thera, who rendered a great service to the Buddha Sasana, was held today. The final rites were conducted at the Independence Square with state patronage.
Large groups flocked to the Sri Sambodhi Vihara today to pay their last respects to the late Venerable Dharanagama Kusaladhamma Thero. The cortege carrying the remains of the late Thero departed the Sri Sambodhi Viharya around 2 p.m. today. The religious observances prior to observing the final rites was held under the auspices of the Anunayaka of the Askiri chapter, Most Venerable Venruwe Upali Thero. Religious observances were also conducted by Theros of other sects. His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, the Archbishop of Colombo, were among the other religious leaders present at the occasion.
That's a wrap of Primetime News. I'm Stephanie Lazarus. Stay tuned. Up next, we have veteran political commentator Dr. Dayan Jayatilaka discussing with Newsfirst about the current situation in the country. Good night.